So you're saying, sorry, you were saying freeform journaling. Yeah. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Hmm. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Yeah. 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 No, that. Yeah, that's a good question, Deborah. Do you read them again, Sue? Or is it like the, yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Oh, very good. Right on. Yeah. Yeah, like I totally get, and sorry, I pressed play on the thing, so I should actually say I've just been sitting here on camera for the past 2 minutes nodding and laughing. So we're talking about journaling and habit formation and stuff, just as we set up the practice. Well, the reason that is, so tying all of these, your journaling and the quitting smoking and all of the different stuff that we've been talking about before we went live on the other camera. So that was going to be my share, is that I've lost my freaking journal. I've lost my flipping journal. And the reason that is so maddening is, you know, it's like losing your car keys or something, and you know they're around and they're just like under the cushion, the part that you're not finding. Anyway, I haven't been able to find the journal for the past few days, and very much like what you're saying, Sue, it would be incorrect for me to say that I don't journal, because I actually have half a dozen different notebooks. Like, I've got a meditation notebook. That's the most valuable one. That one is full of lots of stuff. I've got a yoga one. I've got a fermentation journal. I've got a school, like, yeah, I'm a big fermenter. I like me my sauerkraut. Controlled rot is what fermentation is, basically. Oh, okay. Well, oh, what? Oh, no. Like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm, in terms of my fermentation, like what I do, I have a whole whack of, I'm a big hot pepper person, so I did all manner of I ferment my own hot sauces and stuff. Yeah, that stuff. But I make beer, actually. See, as has been a pattern, at least in my life, is like I figured I'd start with the really, really hard stuff and get that out of the way and then get to the easier stuff. So I actually have been brewing beer for, I don't know, 5 years or more, and then I've only found out after the fact that the easier way to get into fermentation is not to start with like the Olympics, which is brewing beer or something like that. It's quite, it's science. And instead you can actually begin with like pickles and, and peppers and stuff, and it's actually more to my way of doing things, which is not so precise. I enjoy, yeah, that's it. It's it's as much art as it is in science. Yeah. So I've got all of these journals, and they're valuable and so on. But to start this school year, which kind of the intention was that this would be my final year in public schools, which we'll see. Sorry, Henry, I had nothing, so the dog's upset. In any case, I started with setting a daily intention, and it has become part of my practice. Like I have a whole sort of rigmarole that I could go through in the morning that involves meditation and movement and breathing and all manner of things in order to make this this wonderful package that shows up here with you be able to show up in the world and not be a hot mess. But anyway. I've always felt, that's why we were talking about the smoking thing, I've always felt like a bit of that was something that's eluded me. And journaling, as you might expect, is quite big in yoga world. And I just have really not taken to it, except now I've gotten into this habit of setting a daily intention and reflecting on the day and so on, and it's been very useful. So what you were saying, Sue, about rumination, I'm not a ruminator, I'm an anxiouser. I ruminate on the future. Yeah, it's definitely, it's flip side of that same coin. So simply the act of stopping and being intentional about how I'm gonna show up in the world has really made, I'd like to think it's made a big difference for other people too, but it's made a big difference for me. And now that blasted journal has been misplaced, so I got to get over it, and I'm gonna try to find it tonight. But that may be what I do. Yeah. Oh, well, okay, not my definition, but so there's a doctor who I really respect that talks about this stuff. His name is Judd Brewer, and he defines addiction as being continued use despite adverse effects. And so by that simple definition, I don't know that I qualify. There are plenty of things that I do that have adverse effects in my life, no doubt. I'm not so sure that that's been one of them, but I take your point. If there was any sort of volume, it certainly would be. But anyway. Oh yeah? All right, okay. All right, challenge accepted. Should we practice? And by the way, this has been wonderful. I think that this is actually just connecting in terms of like chit-chatting and catching up and stuff is like, there are days where that's the practice and that's totally cool. But I also appreciate that people have shown up out of their day to practice. Shall we practice? You want to do this thing? All right, let's do this thing. So a simple way of sitting to start could be a sit, could be a lie, could be stand, could be whatever you wish. We are going to actually, in a chair is wunderbar. It's perfect. So we're going to practice, the actual movement practice today will be seated. But let's start by sitting with sound today. And the reason that I wanted to do this, not to I don't know, belabor it or be hackneyed about it or whatever, but it's Reconciliation Week. And so, I've been thinking a lot about and sitting a lot with all of that. And so I thought that listening might be a very sort of on the nose way of us practicing, given that it's reconciliation week. So we can do this in two different ways. I'll take you through it. It's not going to be long. Just a way to settle us into the practice. So let's actually get comfortable. Ideally, you can see I've snagged a block there. Now, if you don't have a block at the ready, if you're seated in a chair, maybe just making sure that you're comfortable and not schlumping. So, you know, you may want to move your back away. But again, the best position isn't the one that I cue. It's always the one that feels right in your body and allows you to find a balance between being alert, being relaxed, and not, you know, dumping too much into one or the other of those extremes. Okay? So, we'll start externally. We'll start by listening to what's happening around us. If this is about anything, I mean, I think that reconciliation would be about a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but for me anyway, listening. So let's just check out what's happening in your personal soundscape. We'll take a couple of minutes. I'm not going to add anything to it. I would just, I guess what I'll say by way of setting it up is be intentional. Decide, do you want to take in the entire soundscape? Do you want to key in on one particular sound? There might be a steady state sound like a fan or something in your vicinity. Or do you want to allow your attention to be flexible? Perhaps lingering in that fan, and then if you hear something else in your environment, dropping into it. And being, again, it's not so much darting around or bouncing around as it is really sort of, you know, the linger, being with whatever you're hearing, and then moving on, and then moving on. And also, if you were in a silent room, or even better, let's say, if you were in a noisy environment, you were talking about closing a door earlier, you can just take your attention to the sound of what's happening directly behind your head. That's kind of a nice one, because it's often that's a place of quiet, even in chaos. So let's stay in that way of being for a couple of minutes. Eyes can be closed or open, and otherwise just letting your body resolve itself and tuning in. Can stay with this, or midway through our sort of pre-movement sit to start the practice, here's where you have the opportunity to play, to switch it up if you want. I'm going to actually close my eyes now. I was sitting with eyes open. And that's also intentional. Closing the eyes has a way of supporting us in turning our attention inside, bringing it inward. So you can stay with the external soundscape, or you can listen to what's happening inside. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I don't mean it in terms of like, you know, what's happening emotionally. You may have, you know, again, my mind wanted to keep picking at the threads of our conversation, and I just had to kind of just gently, you know, guide that puppy back, listening, not thinking, listening, not thinking. So just another sort of moment or two here, either listening externally or getting curious about the sounds of your body, of the internal world that we also inhabit, but often miss. What does that sound like? Let that go. So eyes can open up if they were closed. We can bring a little movement back into our bodies. How was that? I mean, did you pick anything up? I mean, this may just be my noisy body, but I often, you know, you can hear heartbeats at points. I can hear sort of like a little tinnitus in my ears. I think that's just the earphones having been in my ears for a while, or, you know, various gurgles and, you know, stuff happening. Any feedback there? Or we're moving into the moving? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What an intelligent practice that is. That's great. Awesome. And you raise an important, in fact, perhaps the most vital thing that that we would observe here, which is that everything I'm offering is a suggestion. So yeah, you switching it up to the visual field because that is what made sense. Awesome. That goes for everything that we do from here on out as well. A question for you actually before we start. Are you comfortable on the floor or will you be in the chair? Just so that I... Well, I don't want to push, I'm certainly not, you can totally, I mean, I think that a lot of what we would be doing will still, some of it won't translate directly, but some of it you can play with, you can be creative, or you could do the equivalent of the, you know, looking at the cat, right? Yeah. Okay. What? Okay, well oh, okay, great. Okay, so, well, when actually now I've just said that about moving to the floor, and the very first thing I'm going to suggest would be that to sit, to build a little heat, like to actually kind of warm up when we're in a seated posture, can feel a little bit elusive. So I have a couple of suggestions there. And The first actually involves, if you were in a chair now, I have a feeling if I do this the way I'm set up, I'll be cut off on the camera, but I don't really care. We're gonna deal. So it's not a chair, actually, it's a block, but it will equate to the same thing. So if you were in a chair, okay, and all I'm doing here, so no, this isn't obviously a chair, but if you could have the arms, you could use it like that, or no, this almost isn't wide enough for me. But one thing you can do if you're on a chair is just grip the sides and lift your bum. And it might not be a big lift, it might be a little, like lift a little bit more on one side, or lift a little bit more on the other, or actually lifting up and feeling like you're really pulling up from your pelvic floor up, so that the strength is coming from the center of your body, not just from your arms. Okay, so that would be option one. Doesn't take a long time for that to build heat, trust me. So there's that. There's three sit options I'm going to give you here to build some heat. The second one involves chair pose, but in a supported way, actually. So, and again, I'm not so sure if this is going to come through on camera, but I can't do it behind me because the yoga propaganda is in the way. But basically what we would be doing, I'll show you, and we'll pretend that there's a wall that I'm placing my back into. It's, well, or I could do it sideways here. I don't know if am I still on camera? Can you still see me? Yeah, okay. It's really just to sit your back against the wall and allow your bum to slide down. And again, it's not a race to get to here. Like you might, if you were laying here and you came down partway, wonderful. But this is gonna really warm up the whole body, the legs, and you can think about bringing your shoulders back, your head back, and then just chilling out here in the exquisite intensity of your quadricep muscles. And when you've had enough of that, come on back up. Either one of those, just shake your legs if you have done that. Either one of those is nice, or if you're down on the ground, and you may have been down on the ground the whole time, and that's totally cool, is the old favorite, the boat pose, okay? So let's set up and we'll make this our entry point from the seated practice. So if you are sitting on the floor, pardon me, legs come together, okay? And let's take your hands, feet are on the floor. There can be a little gap here, you can see for me, like I could actually squeeze them together like that, but a little gap is totally okay too. Hands come in and we'll just place them behind the knees so that you're just gently gripping the upper thighs from behind, okay? And then from here, what we want to accentuate is that we're not doing this, okay? And slumping and ending up with a curve, you know, reversing the curve in our low back where we're here. Instead, we want to be really proud, really sitting up tall and forward, if anything. So what I'm actually thinking we're doing when I set up for this is the idea of like almost leaning my belly into my legs, okay? And it depends, like that might be more or less of lean, every body is different. But then what we can do is we can just begin by bringing one leg up, just one. All other points of contact on the floor. If this is already too tippy, the other hand can come down and support. And then come on down. And that's gonna really kind of work the hip flexors and wake everything up there. I'm gonna bring the other hand down for a bit of support. Again, really sitting up, not thrusting your sternum forward, so really still staying contained, like feeling like there's almost like a magnet drawing your pubic bone and your sternum together. So we're here, okay? Power in there, holding us up, but then also shoulder blades, collarbones, the forward shoulder blades, of course, that they're spreading out. And then we can put the other hand down here and inhale and bring the other leg up. And come on down. And then maybe both hands come in. And we're not gonna, this isn't a big move, it's a lean. Just bring your head and shoulders a little bit back in space until it feels like we can float the feet up. Okay, and we can stay here, Again, always with the ability to touch one foot down or the other foot down, or hands on the wall, or hands on a chair, anything, okay? And give yourself a little rest. Allow yourself to come down. And we'll go into whichever version of any of those three poses is calling out to you. So you might be seated in your chair and pressing up away from the chair. You might be seated against the wall and using the support of the wall to get into the fronts of the legs. Or we lean, we float the feet, and then from there, options would be to bring the legs up, to bring the legs up. Again, this is just play. There isn't an award or anything for how high everything gets. And we'll let that go. Okay. And let's actually, so this pose that we're in right now would be pose number 2 of our seated practice. So we've gone through Navasana, okay, boat pose, and some different variations of a supported boat. This pose is ironically called easy pose because it's not so easy. And don't even get me started on lotus and all of that. But if we're in a cross-legged position, this is kind of a nice one. If you're not uncomfortable doing it, allow your eyes to close. And you can just drape your hands on your knees, or you can kind of open your wrists up. It's like more open posture. But just notice the distribution of weight in your body. So becoming aware of how you're carrying yourself unconsciously when you're sort of just on cruise control. And again, there's nothing to fix here. You are awesome, exactly as you are. So we're not, like, truly, I'm not blowing smoke. I'm saying there isn't a right or a wrong way here. We're just getting curious about, how do I hold myself? So you might notice, is it your left sitting bone? I'm accentuating it by leaning. Or is it your right sitting bone? And you can just even give yourself a little rock side to side. And then kind of pendulating side to side, and then come to what feels like center. Balancing left and right. Notice if you are like straight up on your curved spine, or are you leaning back? Or are you perhaps leaning forward? Can you just give yourself a little teeter-totter back and forth, and then come to what feels like center? And notice the effort that's required here. I can feel my hip flexors. I can feel the sides of my body stabilizing. You might feel it in different spots. And breathing through this, okay? If you notice that you've held your breath, or it's become ragged, or you're up in your head about the fact that the easy pose might not be so easy, or you're not sitting in a way that you find pleasant, all just information. Okay. And then we're gonna switch this up. Hands come down to your sides. So we've got a couple of, we'll call them posts. Feet come back down, sort of like where we started from in our boat pose. So this is bent sit, and I'm just gonna point this out. So bent meaning our legs. And then from here, what I'm gonna actually ask you to do is just drop both legs or both knees to one side. And the hip is gonna come up, that's totally okay. And then slowly we're going to windshield wiper across. Or not so slowly. You decide. Let's give ourselves just a few breaths here. Notice I didn't say for time. So this might be just one turn per side. Okay. Not a lot of rain to wipe away. Or it might be But really here just about, and again, avoiding the kind of recline. So posting yourself up and side to side and side to side. And then come back to your bent sit. And then from here, let's actually bring your right leg down so that the sole of your foot is facing the opposite wall. And using your hands for support, wherever they might land, bring your left knee so that it contacts the foot, okay? And then from here, you may be able to bring your hands forward. And we have side bent sit. So bend sit, side bend sit. And it's totally, and I mean totes normal for your sitting bone on the one side to be floating, okay? I practice this a lot, so it's starting to drop, but with practice. But again, it's not a race. So to have a little bit of space here, totally fine. We're getting, I totally dig this, because what are we getting here? Nice internal rotation. You can even kind of just take your left hand onto the outside of the left thigh and give yourself, like, accentuate that if it feels nice. If it doesn't, you might want to back off, okay? And then we'll post and bring our feet and legs up and then move into the other side. Okay, so, and let me slow that down. So that'll be left foot, right knee, post, and allow that. So we're turning the left hip way open and we're closing the right hip, which is just kind of important, actually, what we want our hips to be able to do, which is to rotate inwardly and outwardly. So you can bring a little bit of movement in there, one way and the other. And with time and with practice, and this, again, this may not be accessible today, but just because it isn't today doesn't mean it wouldn't be in the future. You could bring your hands up, and there's some balance involved here, and place down. Up and place down. How's that? Okay, nice. And then we'll come back to our post and just give ourselves a few gentle, not worried about moving to our end range of motion, just gentle swaying back and forth. And then seat comes back, legs come out, toes come up. Pose is Dandasana. And by the way, I don't normally roll out the Sanskrit, as you all know, I think. But because I'm taking the group in this series, you know, we've been doing the standing series over the last couple, I thought I'd name the poses in the way that they were taught to me, which is how they were taught to me. So the English translation here would be staff pose. So this, sorry, was there a question there? No? Okay. This pose is very much a complement. And here you can spread the toes out, okay? And really just noticing the points of contact between where your legs meet the floor and where they don't. So ankles, or heels I should say, meet. Behind them, Achilles, do not. Calves, meet. Knees, not so much. You know, and on and on. So just feeling that, and then again, totally good here. You can turn the fingers back and post up to give yourself a bit of support. Okay, and we're here. And this is like I say, this is the Dandasana, or staff pose, is like the seated complement to our mountain, our standing Tadasana. So it's this is a nice ready position to come back to within a seated practice. It's also remarkably challenging as we've been sitting here for time. So breathe into it. Okay. This is also, oh, go ahead. Oh, there's a snuffle, that's okay, okay, good. This is also our starting place for a forward fold, but we're not going to go there. Let's leave that until we've been moving around a little bit more. Okay, from here, let's actually instead, we're going to change our position from being super linear to open. So we're going to come to a V. So again, option, and I say this, you'll notice that I'm kind of like literally almost with my finger pads pressing myself up and getting long through the sides of my body. Breathe into that length when you can create it. Just really feeling like we're seated here and we're so forward facing. Can you breathe in to your back, to your sides, everything, especially as you push up, we kind of create some space that might not all, you know, often we're weighed down by gravity, or we're weighed down by our ruminations, or we're weighed down by our computer screen. So really open things up here, and then let's lift one leg and bring it out to the side, however much you want, okay? And then we'll lift it and bring it back. And if you want to be really fancy with this, this is where the yoga nerd comes out. You can start bringing in objects, and it becomes like a little practice where you're lifting and you're coming across, and you sit down, and then you lift and you come across, you sit down, okay? And then you can begin to play with, okay, well, that wasn't so hard, so I'm going to come, you know, this time with more height. Oh, I can do that, okay. You know, and this story ends with you, you know, recruiting small children and passersby. No. Okay, in fact, that's completely superfluous to the practice, unnecessary, not technically speaking required. But that sort of little drill is an interesting way of focusing on what we're doing. So this time, we'll inhale one leg, come out and place down, and we're going to leave it there, and then lift the other and come out, and we're into this V-shaped pose. Now this is, it's been a while since I've actually played with Sanskrit in these poses. Obavista Konasana, okay, wide-legged forward fold. Now, we're not folded necessarily, and you know what? For most bodies, that's a-okay. In fact, the idea of pancaking your body down, either you are in a hypermobile body, if that is something that is supernatural for you and feels nice and you can do it safely, awesome. You could totally go there. Otherwise, like I'll use my much more stiff body as an example. I'm already feeling a lots right now. Where am I feeling it personally? And again, this isn't like a prescription, like if you're not feeling it here, it's somehow not right, because many people wouldn't. But I can feel it right through my inner thigh, okay, the groins, the adductor muscles, the muscles that help pull in. So hands here can land on the thighs, they can land on the lower legs. If it doesn't require, you know, pulling yourself into a weird hunch, so you can keep your spine can absolutely bend, there's nothing wrong there. But let's think about inhaling and lengthening up first, really getting long in our spine, and then exhale, come forward. You might, again, and it's not a race to where we're getting to. All I would say is that if you do hook onto something like toes, as I'm doing here, what we're not doing is yanking ourselves down, okay? It's not so much that it's a cheat as it is potentially doing violence to your body. So what one way that I can kind of test that I haven't exceeded my own capacity here, and you can do this, and again, this works even if your hands are sort of more up the leg, is just ensuring that you can let go and you don't spring out of position, that this is something that actually you can feel in your body and your body is handling it, as opposed to yanking yourself into a position. Okay, and then let's release out of that. And then from here, let's turn toward our right foot, okay? So we're swiveling in our hips a little bit here, and we can work our left hand onto the thigh, or maybe even slide it down toward the lower leg. Don't worry about reaching, at least initially. And then, so as much as you can, focusing in on that big toe of the right foot, and then we'll inhale and bring the opposite arm, or rather our right arm up, and exhale, and a little fold over, and you may slide through a little bit. Okay, and again, this is not a race to get down. You can see I actually can, if I contort myself a little bit, I can get to my toe. It is far less pleasant and, quite frankly, far less useful than me being right here, where my hand is nowhere near my foot. So I'm really like working on where I'm targeting the stretch, and I would encourage you to target the stretch here as you come across, is actually into the side and low back. So not by your spine, but kind of like the fleshy bit by the side of your belt, okay? Feeling that stretch in there, okay? Although we are getting a nice side bit of flexion, a side bend in our spine as well. Let's bring the right hand onto the right leg at some point. Turn your body toward as much as feels comfortable. And you can think about it when I say turn your body, because it's going to be harder the closer you get to your waist, your hips. Think about turning your shoulders, okay? So we're facing there. And then with that hand, or that gaze there, right hand slides down the other way. Inhale, bring your left hand up. I got caught up in my rights and lefts there, you may have noticed. And then come across the other side. And here, this time, notice what's happened to your weight distribution. Again, no right or wrong answers, but we were in easy pose a moment ago. Now we're not. Now we're in a different shape. And we're leaning and we're stretching. And what's happened to our balance? Can you still balance, take your weight into your left sitting bone? So you're not tipping. And we're still breathing. And then inhale, come up. Exhale, arms come down. Sweep the feet in, or if you wish, lift them up and bring them in. Okay? And then just by way of interlude, whatever you want with your legs. They can be straight out, they can be wide, they can be easy, side bent, doesn't matter. I'm actually going to, for me, and again, I say for me because I like being here, but I don't want to leave you here if this is uncomfortable. So this is Virasana, okay, or hero or lightning bolt pose. So really, I'm sitting on my heels, and if this feels like if this feels at all discomforting, you can slide a towel or a blanket underneath the tops of your feet, and that can give a little bit of padding or double up your yoga mat. But equally, or bring in a block, okay? I'm actually doubling up and bringing my feet underneath my sitting bones, but you could bring a block in there. Doesn't matter, okay? Just know that we're gonna be here for a moment, so if this is not the pose for you, one of the earlier versions, totally cool. Instead, in our seat, we're gonna get into our shoulders a little bit. Let's start by bringing our hands onto our shoulders, or finger pads. And again, if they land there, great. If they don't for some reason, yoga is over. Okay, you must leave. No, although interestingly, that is within one discipline anyway. That is the Ashtangis. That's my understanding, is that their primary series. Once you get to the pose that you can't do, then the practice stops. Which I'm not going to offer any comment on any other tradition than the weird ones that I practice. But let's just begin some circles. So thinking about tracing some circles with your elbows here. I question from a pedagogical standpoint why we would ask anyone to stop simply because they're unable to perform something on a given day. But perhaps there are sages out there who have a different perspective. Bully for that. All right, and then reversing. And by the way, now all I cued there was fingertips to shoulders. But really feeling your shoulder blades as we move through these circles. Feeling, as the elbows come out, shoulder blades coming together without pinching, without, like that, but just letting them come through their range. And then as elbows come forward and up, feeling those shoulder blades open and spread across the back. Okay, good. And then from here, let's let go of that. And instead, bring our arms up into a cactus shape. Okay, so we're there, almost like we're in a T, and then we're like hands up. Okay, and inhale, stretch up, but not just through your shoulders. Feel like you're stretching up from your seat. And cactus. And up, and you might look up towards your hands, and cactus. And then one more of those. And this time, let's actually take our left hand to our right wrist. And I'm actually going to shift my position, not even so much because I'm uncomfortable, as that's going to get real tippy real fast, so you may want to do that. So we were up, okay? And then feel like you're pulling with left hand up and away from the right hip. So a little side bend, and then if you want the pose for support, we can really just reach. And come up, and reverse, right hand to left wrist. Little pull. Ooh, so nice through the outside and underneath the pit of our arm. And a little side bend. Good. And then both arms come up. And you guessed it, cactus. And now this time what we're going to do, so palms are facing forward, facing toward, I guess, with zoom, facing toward the camera. Then can you keep just take a peek at each arm, okay? Are they even with your body? Are they roughly straight? Yeah? And then just patty cake the hands down and up. Two more of those. Down and up. Last time down. And we're not going to go up. Instead, we're going to continue down and bring the arms back. Ooh. And then just let them go. Okay. So, demystifying seated. Seated does not mean just a bunch of forward bends. It can be, but it's also a wonderful opportunity to get into other parts of our body. Okay, let's, from here, move into a little twist. So, well, we could do this a lot of different ways. Let's actually start with a simple twist. So we're in a cross-legged position. And again, by the way, I should say, let's say that we had a knee that was bothering us and we didn't want to be here. This wasn't a happy space. You could have a foot like this, okay? Totally cool, okay? Or you could go to your side bend or whatever. All right, let's just play with a little bit of reaching. So really sitting forward here. And then what I'm gonna ask you to do is take your fingers and just begin to like spider walk them forward. Not taking your bum away from the mat or from the floor. So this is not, again, not a race to like put your forehead down on the mat, but reach. And then take your hands out to one side, doesn't really matter which side. Breathing as you do this, maybe inhaling as we come back through center, and then exhaling, we'll reach the other way. Again, notice the weight distribution in your hips. Have you lifted? Have you compensated? And without any sort of negative talking smack to ourselves, just notice that, say, oh yeah, okay. And if you are trying, like if you're vying to get into a position, that's an interesting thing to pick up. Not even necessarily for right now, but like, why was I so invested in being able to do this, pose in a particular way? It's like pretty small potatoes in the grand scheme of things, right? But it's easy enough to get caught up in it, like everything else in our lives. Okay, little twist. So let's put this together in stages. So left heel is going to come toward front of the right sitting bone. Okay. Right heel is going to come on the inside of the left knee. So often we charge right across to the outside. Instead, I'm going to ask you to sit as tall as you can, okay? And then you can take your left arm and wrap the knee. And there's a little shifting and adjusting that goes on here. Like I kind of like, not sucking my gut in, but like feeling this turn, okay? And you can hug, hug, hug. And this right away, like this may be enough, okay? If you are cool here, awesome. Breathe and just enjoy the sensations of what's happening. Or we can release this, and you might, if it's accessible to you, place the right foot on the outside of the left knee. And then again, you can wrap the arm, or you can place your right hand down, tent the fingers, and create a little post for yourself for support, and perhaps tuck the left elbow onto the outside of the right knee. And you can have your hand here as a stop sign, or bring it down. But anytime we're twisting, what we're definitely not trying to accentuate is any sort of like dumping down or collapsing. We want to stay super proud and tall so that there's lots of space between the vertebrae of our spine. Okay, and then we're going to unwind, unhook all of that. Except the leg, I'm going to leave that there for a second and just reach to the other side. Just a little counter stretch. I'm not going to give you the Sanskrit for that last pose, which was half Lord of the Fishes pose, because that's a lot, those are a lot of constants. That would be a fair bit of Sanskrit. Okay, so we're going to unhook our legs and reverse the pose. Left heel comes in, right, so towards the left sitting bone. Left heel comes toward the inside of the right knee. And then you can give yourself that hug again. It's an interesting thing with this practice. So just breathing here. And again, I'm not going to cue it. I think you probably know where we can go. So you can stay where you are or come across if it's accessible. Come across if it's accessible. But any of these points along the way, I guess what I would ask you to ask yourself is, which of these options actually feels most interesting, feels most challenging, feels most relaxing, you know, given what your intention is and what day you're in, what your body's like. All of these things can change. They're all up for investigation. There was a while back, I realized that I had gotten fairly myopic in my practice around one particular twist that involved reaching my arms behind my back and you know, really getting into a bind, and literally. And there's just one day where I was practicing and I realized, I'm not enjoying this. And that's okay too, right? We can absolutely, let's release out of that. Oh, and I forgot the counter stretch. I'm telling the story, so maybe a little counter stretch. It's totally an important part of the practice, I think, to at times to safely, you know, kind of bump up against our comfort zones and really just investigate, you know, can we add to our capacity? Is there a different way of expressing this? And, you know, the more I practice, this is becoming easier, this is becoming, you know, more accessible. That's all good. But sometimes it's just not your jam, right? It's just not for you. And this particular pose, I mean, I still will I'm not going to share it today, but I will, you know, throw it into my practice just to see where it's there. And there's some days where it's kind of nice, and there are other days where it's just like, not for me. So with all of this stuff, right? Okay. Let's bring our left foot, see I'm moving into it before. So this is like half a Dandasana. So left foot comes forward, toes, if anything, coming towards your face, and you can really spread those toes, okay? And then the right foot comes in, and we're taking our knee. Now your knee might be forward, okay? But ideally we're moving towards like an L shape. So left leg extended, right bent, and out to the side. And then you can use those posts to turn your hips so that you're facing that left leg. Okay, head of the knee pose, Janu Shirshasana. So head of the knee does not mean head placed onto the knee. It does mean, however, that we can here transition our hands from posts to maybe bring them forward, maybe bring them forward, maybe bringing them forward. And again, it's not a race. So let me demo this. I'll give you a for instance. I can bring my hands down and allow my lower arms to rest on my leg, but it means that my fingers are gonna, just with my body, the shape of my body, they're gonna land midway down my shin, okay? And that, if I'm here, this is super chill and relaxing because I'm not pulling myself forward. I'm not, vying in any way. I'm just letting myself rest. So this is a nice place to be, okay? Or, we can drop down and perhaps you're hooking the foot. This is also, by the way, the intermediary. I'm not going to reach across, but if you could like loop a strap or a towel. Okay, and again, same rule as before. We're not going to pull ourselves so much as support ourselves. Breathing here. And then I'm going to cue you through what I think is one of the nicest little reverse stretches in the practice for me. I totally dig this one. So if you come on up, so let's explore it and see what you think. What we're going to do is we're going to take our right hand. So this is left leg extended, and this is the important bit because we want to put our shoulder into a nice healthy position. Take your thumb and turn it out. Okay, so you're like, hey there, going my way? Yep. Hand goes down. And now you can see what's not going to happen is it's going to be hard. I'm doing it, but I'm having to work at it. If your finger is forward, it's easy to kind of dump into the shoulder. And we're going to bring some weight onto this hand, so we don't necessarily want to do that. So turn the hand out, and then you can use the hand and your right hip to reach and to stretch and allow that left hand to come up. Yeah, and if I just heard, oop, that's enough. So if you've hit that spot where you, oop, that's enough. Awesome. Right leg meets left. And then left foot comes up onto the other side. Hands come into your posts. And by the way, you could be sideways and do this as a side bend, much like we've done in the V. So there's lots of options here. But today, I think let me show you. We're straight, and then hands come forward, and then hands come forward. And it's less about your head coming down. It's more, think about the bottom inch of your belly and the top inch of your thigh. High-fiving each other, becoming friends, getting close. Okay, hands might move, hands might move. Each leg is different. Haha, see? I love it. This leg, stiffer than the other. So I can reach my toes, but the other I can like wrap right around. Here, not so much, and that's okay. Let's take a few breaths here. And then we're going to slowly, gently come up. Left hand, turn it out, place it down, and then using that hand and right leg and hip, and reach up and over. So your little tripod here. Oh, yeah. Nice. And then come on back down. Okay. One final pose for you. It's a version of pigeon pose that I actually, one, I think it's more accessible, and two, I really like, which isn't to say that pigeon isn't a great pose. It's awesome. It can be a wonderful part of a practice, and it's toward the end of a practice. It's one I've had students, they're often asked, oh, can we do pigeon? Can we do pigeon? Okay, today, not so much pigeon, because we're sitting. Instead, we're gonna do like a 90-90 pose, so 90 in each of our hips, and I should say 90-ish. because, and again, like all things, until you've been practicing this, 90-90 might not be accessible. You might be like 90-70 or 90-60, and that's okay. All right, so what does this look like? We're gonna take our right, just as a point of reference, and if you don't have a mat, like if you're on carpet or something, that's okay too. You can see I'm in kind of a side bent sit right now, okay, just by taking my right thigh and moving it parallel to the right side of my mat, okay? The difference is this time, rather than having my knee and my foot touch, I'm gonna bring my foot forward and really press in through my big toe base so that my knee is in a healthy position. And I want you to really pay heed of that, okay? If I relax my foot, then the leg is all kind of slack and we can get into some, you know, putting pressure onto the knee in a way that it might not love. Whereas I found that if you really kind of engage the whole lower leg, and you can see it like pressing through that toe base towards the opposite wall, it has a way of like setting the whole leg so that this is far more protected, okay? Now, the other leg might be exactly where it wants to be, but what we would ideally be doing is, and with pose here, is taking that hip back, okay? My back hip is, our back sitting bone is off the ground, and bringing the other leg into position, okay? And then we can bring both hands to one side or the other of our forward leg. So here's 90, here's 90, there's our 90-90. And from there, nothing more to do but breathe and just be in this, okay? This is already a really nice spot to be, okay? Or you can spider those fingers and come down across, leaning some weight into the thigh, not the knee. Okay. And then you might want to come up. Again, you could be there for as long as you wish. I kind of dig this. Here's where we get a nice little twist and counter twist. So, the twist. First off, let's slide your right hand a little bit kind of to the side and behind, and then take the left hand and maybe it comes across. And that might mean adjusting your back leg, right? It may or may not stay. But that is gonna give at least the potential for a really nice release through the hip flexors, the front of the left hip. And then let's keep the right arm as straight as we can and just lean down however much you want. Ooh, and that can get intense pretty quickly, so not too deep. And then our counter through center is to turn into the left hip. Go slow here. Okay, hands come down, and we simply, and again, you don't have to roll, I'm just gonna do it so you can see it. We switch into the other leg. Left top of the left thigh, parallel with the mat. Turn on that foot, protect the knee. So almost like you were gonna step, like there's a floor here and you're stepping on it. Okay, opposite leg comes back. Okay, set it up. Hands to either side. Big inhale. Into the belly. Exhale. We're here, we're staying here, or coming down. A little bow. And come up, and then we'll slide the left hand a little back. We can bring the right over, and you might just be here, and this is a nice place to land. No, don't need to go any further. Or left arm stays relatively straight and a little lean. And that's you're gonna get that pigeon stretch, trust me, in that position through that left hip. I shouldn't say you're going to, because what do I know, but it's a place that you can explore that sensation, at least potentially. And then the counter twist, getting into that internal rotation of the right hip. Nice. And then anything that you need to do to you might just want to give the legs a little shake or take the feet from one side to the other. And we'll end as we began. And I don't mean in boat pose or leaned up against the wall or pushing off a chair. Instead, seated, adjusting yourself as you will. And just take a moment of thanks. Who am I thanking? I'm thanking all of you for being here, and I'm thanking all of you who will be checking this out after the fact. And I'm thanking myself for making the time in my day. And I'm just really grateful for all the things that had to come together for this to happen, which is like pretty amazing if you stop and think about it. It seems mundane, maybe banal, but it's not. I'm even thankful for that journal that I've misplaced somewhere. All right. Peace out and peace in. Namaste. Thank you, Deborah, Adriana, Sue. How, knee okay out there? Wonderful. Fantastic. Fantastic. Also good, right? Sorry, I've got it. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Right. Nice. Right on. All right, friends. Why don't we call it a day? And next week we sit, and we'll be sitting with the third of 5 aggregates. That is correct. So we're on next Monday. We'll be off for the Thanksgiving Monday, and then that's it. That's it. Be well out there, everyone. You rock, as always. So awesome to connect with you. Thank you. Okay, take care. Bye. And bye out there. Take care. Be well. Boop. Oh, I don't. Was I even taping it? Holy smokes. Oh, smokes.